Hello, everybody. Welcome back to EBS. We are very happy to have you here with us today. My name is Steve. Today, we're going to talk about something that I think is very interesting, and can kind of come about it from a couple different ways. But the act of service is seems like such an intrinsic aspect in almost all meditative practices at some point. We know that a lot of us start meditation because we're seeking something, or we're having an event going on in our life that's causing us some anxiety, and we're trying to settle, find a little bit of peace. We just want a little bit, and maybe we start our practice like that. Others, we start our practice just because maybe we're just naturally drawn to it, regardless. But you meditate, maybe starting off trying to find that peace of mind for yourself. Perfectly legit, as it should be. And then maybe after a while, you've been meditating for some period of time, and you begin to feel drawn towards finding or sharing some sort of peace of mind with those around you in some way, shape, or form. And perhaps in that sharing, you could almost call it that it is a service that you do. Now, you can do a service for others, you can do a service with others, or you can do a service to others, right? But maybe in the meditative world is that we kind of have an understanding that after a certain point, you and I are not separated by that much. Maybe by the thinnest of veils are we actually truly separate entities. But past that thinnest of veils, we are, in some way, we stand closer together. Maybe we are all kind of going down that same path, and many of us find different ways to do it, but we're doing it together. And when we think about that sort of togetherness, that sort of unity, being part of this family, right? Then what happens is maybe your meditation shifts over a little bit to where occasionally you may, I think we're going to have we're having our siren go through. The focus may shift over to occasionally you may focus on others in your meditation. And maybe that focus of service maybe becomes your meditation at times a little bit. So I wanted to talk about that for a second. I've always been interested in different cultures and how different cultures kind of say the same thing, but just in a lot of different ways. If any of you guys are familiar with Joseph Campbell's work, I just thought, I think that he, in his lectures and books, did such a good job in showing us how, no matter how diverse culturally we may be from that other person, we actually are talking the same language and we're saying the same things. So one aspect, particularly in the meditation world that we tend to do, is the act of to bow. A very common thing in the East and somewhat so in the West. But if you kind of notice, it's not uncommon to see a meditation student bowing to their teacher, or a meditation practitioner bowing to their fellow practitioners. And what does that signify? What is it that we're kind of saying through that gesture? And I don't have that answer as much as I have that thought or feeling that, in a sense, I'm bowing to the Buddha in you that is the same Buddha in me. Substitute the word Buddha for whatever you want to, but you know what I'm saying here. I am bowing to that very essence that lies within you, that lies within me, and there is not that separation that really is there. And it's interesting that as we further our practice of meditation, then perhaps we begin to have a greater understanding of what universal compassion maybe really is. where you really do see the brotherhood, the sisterhood, the humanity within each person versus just the differences. And that meditative mind naturally tends to resonate with the similarities that we share. The monkey mind, on the other hand, likes to resonate with all the differences that we have. And those make us unique, and that's good. That's not a bad thing. But if that's all you see, then your vision is a little bit limited maybe. And that what we know, that when we can relate well to others and see well with others, share a common vision, and on and so forth, then perhaps we are doing our small little part in being of service to humanity, to this incredible world that we live in. So I wanted to read just a small thing from this book from the Dalai Lama, The Open Heart. And it's interesting sometimes. I usually come here about maybe a half hour early, and we have a little library, and I sit in there and I meditate for a little bit and trying to figure out, what is it I'm going to say today or whatever it might be. And a lot of times I pick up a book and it's just kind of like, there it is. It's right there in front of me. And it's so very true. So give me a second here and let me read this, because this speaks very well of what we're talking about. We have spoken a great deal about compassion and equanimity and what it means to cultivate these qualities in our everyday lives. Now, I love that just by itself. What he talks about is, let's say, that practice of compassion in our everyday life, meaning not only in our meditative practice, but in our work world, our family world, our neighbor world, we cultivate that act of compassion. When we have developed our sense of compassion to the point to where we feel responsible for all beings, we are motivated to perfect our ability to serve them. And I think that's the key, in a sense, right there, is that as you practice your meditation and become more aware of the unity, then perhaps that desire, that natural next step is to begin to think of service to others, right? Buddhists call the aspiration to attain such a state bodhicitta, and the one who has achieved it is bodhisattva. And so here, I think that it's great because further on in the book, he talks about we spend lifetimes and lifetimes and lifetimes perfecting the art of service. And those that have perfected it in the Buddhist world are bodhisattvas. And what you'll find in a lot of Buddhist practices, there is the vow of the bodhisattva to try to be of perfect service to those in the world. Okay? So obviously, a very significant and important aspect of any meditation practice is to consider that. And what I kind of have learned is that whether you've started meditation yesterday, a week ago, a month ago, 20 years ago, 5 lifetimes ago, it doesn't matter. But every once in a while, maybe it adds to our meditative practice is if what we do intentionally is sit down and meditate with the thought of service, okay? The thought of to serve. And today we're going to do that using that image of bowing. And I kind of always have thought that bowing is kind of like my gesture of saying that all the individual wants of Steve, I put to the side for a second, and I honor the Buddha in you. And in doing so, the Buddha in me maybe has an avenue to express itself a little bit. And so we're going to use the art of bowing in our meditation to kind of plant that seed and to kind of let it grow. And I think it's fair to say when we think of service, a lot of times we think of doing something to help somebody that is at a disadvantage. They've had a horrible loss. Certainly in the news with all the tornadoes and stuff, you can only imagine the loss that so many people have had. But sometimes it's not so much service is not so much to rescue somebody from an unpleasant situation. Service sometimes is that ability to stand next to them in a full open heart of compassion and just stand there with them, right? Because it's their path they are trying to navigate through. And it's not I don't have the wisdom to know what they need or don't need, but I do have that desire to stand next to them, totally open heart, compassion, service, being there. So let's try that, okay? All right, guys. So let's meditate. I'm sitting in a chair, as I do most times, and some of you may be on a cushion. And when I get ready to meditate, I take a couple of breaths, and I can feel my body starting to change a little bit. It's relaxing. It's not sending me to sleep. It's that kind of relaxation where I'm becoming a little bit more attentive or aware of my physical self. And as I do that, as I have that awareness, then I just allow my breathing to get a little bit slower, a little bit deeper, a little bit longer. I feel myself sitting in the chair. I have the awareness of my presence in this room. I start to follow my breath further and further out and deeper in. And with each breath out, I feel my presence filling the room I'm in, filling the space that I'm in. With each breath in, I feel myself reaching deeper and deeper into my meditation practice. And as I breathe, I just let myself slow down, let myself relax, let my thoughts naturally come, naturally go. I don't hold on to them. I don't push them away. They just naturally arise and then move on. if the meditative mind is there to serve, perhaps I can visualize that person, that place, that is in need, and I clearly see that in front of me. And as I see that, I can feel maybe the hurt that they're going through, their struggles, their pain. And in the middle of all of that, perhaps I can see their Buddha, their perfected self, and in seeing that, with some degree of clarity, I see myself bowing deeply, allowing my Buddha nature to be part of their Buddha nature. And as I bow, and as I offer my meditations for service, to serve, I can begin to see, begin to realize that these Buddha natures are in fact one. And when I see that Buddha nature in the midst of hurt, in the midst of pain, and that's where I rest my attention. That's where we all stand. And that is where I hold myself. Each time my mind drifts, I come back to that deep bow of service, and I hold that bow. And with a deep bow, I take a breath. I bring my awareness back to the room I'm in, to the chair or the cushion I'm sitting on. I bring my awareness back to my body. Slowly open my eyes. What do you feel right now? What does it feel like? For some reason, I feel like the weight that I've been carrying around has been lifted a little bit. But I didn't meditate on me. I meditated on someone else. I forgot about me for a while, my struggles, my challenges. And I just focused on someone else. I did my best to see their Buddha nature and did my best to identify with that, and then just open my heart in service. Maybe that's how it works a little bit sometimes, isn't it? You know, maybe when we actually do have that ability to serve without ego, just to be that vehicle of service, maybe what happens, it lightens our load. Good side effect, huh? Wish I did more things like that, you know, if you will. So sometimes when there's a lot going on in our personal life or in the world around us with everything that's happening these days, sometimes that all can feel kind of overwhelming, frustrating, whatever it all might be. And those are all legitimate. It is overwhelming, it is frustrating, and all those other 20,000 things. But sometimes maybe it's not a bad idea just to turn and look to someone else, bow to them, and hold that bow in your meditation. You know, and just let that be your breath. And for some of us who are kind of, you know, really visually cued up, we might see that breath is that breath of service. Breathe out, that service. Breathe in, the need for that service. And so if you work at this a little bit, it doesn't take a lot of imagination, you can certainly see that every once in a while, just to bow in service to someone else is a pretty good meditation to have in your back pocket, you know. And I liked what the Dalai Lama was saying in this book, in that for those of us who practice, have a meditation practice, we kind of come to a point in our practice where we reach the awareness of the Buddha in others. And we see that, and we're drawn to that in service. And that becomes the foundation, maybe, an oversimplified way of saying it, but maybe the foundation of the Bodhisattva vows. So, not bad. All things, this is all food for thought, isn't it? Just a food for thought. So, guys, thank you for being part of EBS's meditation family. Certainly very grateful that you have hung in there with us throughout this period of time, and that you have been part of our support and been very much appreciated for all that you do just by leaving a comment or watching the videos or whatever it might be. It really does mean a lot to all of us here, and that is for sure. So.